My early 20s were all about building the perfect circle with the right friends, and that pretty much meant filling every empty space with group chats, brunch dates, weekend plans, laughter, just anything fun and lighthearted, because as long as I wasn't alone, I'd supposedly be okay. But looking back, the loneliest moments that I've ever had weren't spent alone. They were spent pretending that I wasn't surrounded by presence and yet feeling completely disconnected still. I distinctly remember sitting at a brunch table once and I was laughing at all the right moments, nodding along, but I was sitting there and deep down I knew that I was just there playing a role, playing a part. And so now that I'm in my mid 20s, I'm constantly asking myself the question, well, how exactly do I find the right company? Welcome to the Full Spread, a space where we savor life's flavors, both metaphorically and literally. I'm Mabel, and I suggest that you grab something cozy like a drink or some snacks because we're about to get into something pretty deep that took me way too long to learn, which is the difference between being surrounded versus being fulfilled by your surroundings. So I think we grow up believing that loneliness is our biggest enemy. So we fill up our time with noise. And I'm not saying that long-term isolation is healthy for you either, but there's a specific type of loneliness that you can still feel even when you're sitting in a crowded room. And there's a specific type of peace that you can come by when you learn how to sit with yourself in your own silence and still not feel lonely. And those lines tend to get a little bit blurry when you start surrounding yourself with the wrong people. And it's because you start to confuse company for connection. And I'm talking people who keep things lighthearted, but that's kind of where their role ends. People who fill up your space without ever holding space for you. And don't get me wrong, no one is obligated to be there for you, but true friends will choose to. They're not going to try to fix your problems or pull you out of it, but they're going to sit in your problems with you. Because truth of the matter is, life isn't always going to be carefree. You're bound to run into tough moments. And so when those tough moments come, you don't want someone who's going to take away your responsibility to actually face your problems and grow from it. But you also don't want someone who's going to let you sink in it alone either. I realized that the mistake that I made was expecting every single friendship that I had encountered to be a space for deep connection. And that if I truly wanted that, then I needed to seek out people who are both willing and capable of cultivating it. But that's all pretty vague, right? Let's get real for a second. I was at the lowest moment of my whole entire life. And at that time, I had confided in someone who I really trusted, as anyone does, right? And listen, I'm not perfect. I'm never going to say that I'm perfect, nor will I refuse to own up to my mistakes. I've made some decisions that in hindsight and probably in foresight were completely terrible. But the thing is, anyone who knows me knows that I wasn't seeking for validation. I was just needing someone to help me process everything through the chaos that had ensued. And so I confided in her, and she told me, I find it difficult to talk to you now because what you're going through doesn't align with my values. And I was kind of like, oh. Like, I genuinely thought that I was being dropped from a brand sponsorship or something. Like, as if I didn't see eye to eye with their mission statement anymore, as if my pain somehow made me incompatible for us or our friendship. I wasn't asking her to co-sign on my mistakes. I wasn't expecting her to be like, yes, ruin your life, ruin everyone else's lives around you. I was just expecting her to sit with me in the why. Like, what was going on internally that led me to making a decision that didn't even align with my own values. And so that's when it clicked in my brain. Some people are only wanting to be with you when you're fun and easy to love. They only want to be there for you when you're lighthearted and you bring the good vibes. And they especially love you when you're going through drama, as long as they're not the ones caught in it. Not as if your problems rub them the wrong way, but as if your problems might rub off on their lives. It was in that moment that I was surrounded by the most friends in my social circle that I've ever had at a single time. And yet I was feeling completely lonely because I didn't have anyone to talk to. And so that led me to the conclusion that not everyone is built to sit with you in the dark. Some people only want to be around when the sun's out, and that's fine. Everyone loves sunshine, right? But the point that I want to make for anyone who's misunderstanding me is that surface level friends stay surface level consistently. They don't jump back and forth when it's convenient for them. For me, true honesty would be like, okay, so I know that you're going through something really tough and I want to be there for you to support you, but I struggle with these heavy conversations because what I was going through is similar to what you're going through, and it's a trigger for me. True accountability would be, okay, let's sit down and debrief this. What happened? How did it happen? Why did you do that? And how can we make this right and grow from it? For me, she didn't even need to stick around. If you don't want to get that deep into our friendship, that's completely fine. But you're only reaching out during the good times, refusing to acknowledge the bad times, and then coming back later for an update to check in. That's not offering support with boundaries. That's you staying a comfortable distance while still keeping tabs for the gossip. You want me to handle everything by myself, and then you can come back later for a recap, as if you're like an absent father popping in 20 years later just to ease your guilt after the fact. And the most important point that I want to make is you can choose to set boundaries and stay surface level, but that also means not prying into other people's lives in order to honor the boundary that you wanted to set in the first place. If she was willing to pry when things were fun and, entertaining for her, then she should have had the integrity to either, one, continue being that supportive friend, or number two, have never pried so deeply into my personal life in the first place. And I think this is a controversial topic because in our society, we've gotten caught up with being right or being wrong without considering compassion. We're so quick to just slap the toxic label on anything that feels like a little bit more emotional work, to where boundaries have gone from self-care to just a polite way of saying, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I think we're confusing true boundaries with a form of selective engagement or selective involvement, to where friendships now just feel like they're built on convenience and convenience alone. I think we're forgetting how to sit with people in their messes because obviously it's easier to just ignore that 2 a.m. text that your friend sends you, right? But that's what real connections and real friendships are all about. True connections are not just about alignment. They're about mutual understanding and respect, and most importantly, mutual support. I'm going to hold your hand when I say this, that not every tough moment in a friendship is a sign to cut ties. Sometimes it's just a part of life. It's a part of being human. As a friend, you're not supposed to have all the answers. You're not supposed to fix your friend's problems, but you choose to stay there anyways. And I think we need more of that in a world that tells us to only show up for what serves us a purpose and to always put ourselves first, no matter what, 24/7, no exceptions, no questions asked. True friends are different. They're not just there for birthday parties or celebrations. They're the ones who drive you to the airport at 4 a.m., coffee in hand, even though they're not morning people. They're the ones who are helping you move your furniture, even though your boxes are suspiciously heavy and you said that you would declutter last month. But full disclaimer, I'm not saying that we should let friendships drain us and stay with people who take advantage of us. If something triggers you, then by all means, you have the right to take one step back. I have been in a friendship where boundaries were completely warranted. I used to have a friend who turned every single one of our hangouts into her personal therapy session. And it wasn't just me being there for her and her being vulnerable towards me. It was her ranting and venting about all of her situations and expecting me to always say the right thing, not just the thing that she needed to hear, but it was what she wanted to hear. And if I didn't do that, then she'd be offended or she'd get mad at me. And so I truly believe in setting boundaries, but I do think that there's a difference between setting them out of necessity versus using it in a self-serving way. So bottom line, realizing who I wanted and needed in my life didn't happen overnight. It was more of a trial and error sort of thing. I didn't have a strict test per se. It was more of just me asking myself questions like, do I feel drained or do I feel understood when I hang out with this person? Do I feel like I need to vent and rant after every single one of our hangouts, or do I feel motivated and inspired to do more with my life? And do I feel happy being with this person? And I think that's the most important part. And what I realized is that some people weren't just there in my lives because they truly added value to my growth. It was more of them just being there out of convenience or obligation, like family or friends from high school. And slowly but surely, I built a small but solid circle of friends who actually brought something to the table. Whether that's laughter, shared sense of purpose, or mutual support. But never just one thing. Because what I realized for myself, and this might not apply to everyone, was if it was just laughter alone, I'd feel like the friendship was surface level. And if it was just a shared sense of purpose alone, I'd feel like I was stuck in my own comfort zone. And if it was just mutual support, then I'd feel like I was being selfish because I was only coming to this person when I had a rough time. And I've realized for myself that the right people are not only supposed to make you feel good, they're supposed to challenge you and help you grow. And most importantly, to accept you through all of your layers, even if those layers don't actually apply to them. But I think the biggest shift wasn't in who I surrounded myself with, but more so why I sought their presence in the first place. And I think it was because I didn't find fulfillment in my own solitude, and that's why I sought fulfillment elsewhere. And the truth is, true connection takes time. It takes time and effort to be vulnerable with someone and to let your guard down and allow them to be vulnerable with you. And instead of seeking that out organically, I was taking the shortcut route. I was looking for depth in friendships that either didn't have the capacity to get there or didn't get there yet. And so there was a huge disconnect between what I wanted versus what was realistically possible. The more that I embraced time alone, the more that I understood about myself and my personality, and it became so much easier to find the type of friendships that would nurture that. I didn't need to look for friends who perfectly mirrored my values and my interests. Instead, I found that contentment by doing things by myself that would make me feel fulfilled and whole and make me truly happy. And so it became easier to bring in people who would amplify that happiness. Looking back, I don't hold resentment towards anyone because at the end of the day, we're still young, we're still learning how to navigate life. And at a certain time, that friendship served a purpose for me. If anything, it was a lesson to learn. But now I've kind of grown into a mindset where I need more authenticity and more depth from a friendship. And I wish the same for them too. At this point in my life, I measure friendship not by how often I talk to them or how fun they are to be around. I measure friendship by how safe I feel around them, even in my worst moments too. And we've talked a lot about redefining boundaries, but a different way to look at it is boundaries is also relieving yourself from the expectation, whether that's internal or external, that you always have to have someone to make you feel whole. You always have to find the right person to make you feel fulfilled. The truth is that the right people don't create happiness for you. That's something that you have to create for yourself. The right people are always going to be there on the sidelines to remind you that the happiness has always been within you. And they're not just going to disappear because you're struggling to find it. They're going to be there to show you that your light has always been there, but they're not just going to drop you because your light is dim for a while. And so if you've been searching for happiness in constant movement in other people, I totally get it because I've been there before. But I hope you know that the right people are out there. The people who are going to sit with you, listen to you, and most importantly, stay. And I hope that we learn to sit with each other, to be there for the people who we love, even when they're messy, even when it's difficult, because true connection isn't just about shared joy, it's also about shared struggle. And so I know that this talk has been a little bit deep. I hope that it's helpful to you in any sort of way. And we'll talk soon, the next time. Bye, besties. Love you.